Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. It is 1 o'clock. Certification of open meeting law requirements have been met. I need a motion to adopt the 10-item agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Tellefson, seconded by Mr. Schreiner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And I need a motion to adopt the prior meeting minutes from 4/21/21.
So moved.
Moved by Schreiner, seconded by Ziegler. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The public comment period, we are waiting for the sheets to come back down. We had sheets, and I think, did she take them all with her? Oh, for anybody that would like to speak, and we're trying to make it as brief as possible, there is a meeting in this building, in this office here at 3 o'clock today. So if you did speak last time and don't have anything different to add today, we would appreciate that you would not go back up. We're going to try to keep it limited to just a few minutes for each person so that we can get everything done before we have to vacate the county boardroom. And those you're going to pass out in here to the ones that want them?
Sure.
And the ones coming from the courthouse upstairs should be back down here shortly.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
Would you prefer county board members who are not on this committee not speak today and defer to the public?
I get, if you're here as a member of the public, or if you're here, I guess it's up to you, Jeannie, what you want to do. Yes.
I'm going to be making a motion to send this resolution to the full county board, ask the county board chair to designate a specific meeting in June and include up to 2-hour public comment period so that every member of the county board can vote on it, and every person in the county can reach out to their individual elected official
Right.
to be represented. So
Okay.
I've talked to John Austin about it already, and he agrees that this needs to be done. So that is out there, that,
Very good.
so.
Sally, are you making that motion today?
Yeah, I'm just not really sure where I'm supposed to make it. Can I make it? I can't right here, yeah, because of it, but yeah. Yeah, I will be making it today.
Thank you.
Are you making it right now?
I can't because of the agenda.
Oh, after the public.
Right.
I have 2 left,
I'll take one.
and 1 left, if anybody wants it. Do you want me to
Yeah.
take them?
Yeah, that would be best. And once I get them, I can start calling people up as I get these, and we can take the other ones up when they get the sheets from down below.
Yeah, went to the Evelyn Woods School. You're old enough to remember that.
This is all of them?
Some, no, they're still filling them out.
We're going to talk about it on Friday. Yeah, no. Yeah, I have that one where I'm always like, it's time. Well, we've done a ton of research. We've looked at the best data, best guidance. We're good.
Thank you.
See, he didn't want to come down. Austin, you coward. Totally emailing him.
Two regular board member appointments to the environmental land use
My husband has those for his motorcycle, so does my son.
Okay.
It's the tactical booth, right?
Sally's, you gotta hit the lever just
Gotta get the lever just right. I wear high heels on the motorcycle, they fell off. And then one melted on the exhaust. Boy, that was-
Okay, for the public comment, the first person we will hear from is Larry Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here today as the pastor of the Osseo Community Church, and in response to a letter that was signed by several religious individuals here serving Trempealeau County. In the letter, they state our nation faces critical problems, including creating economic opportunities for the next generation, ensuring that all citizens have access to affordable health care, seeking racial justice, and slowing the warming of our planet. While these words and ideals sound soothing to those with itching ears, they will have no effect whatsoever on the heart of man. In fact, as the Word of God tells us, for out of the heart of man flows the issues of life. Charles Finney, who was a minister at the Second Great Awakening, wrote these words: "Our preaching will bear its legitimate fruits. If immorality prevails in the land, the fault is ours to a great degree. If there is decay of conscience, the pulpit is responsible for it. If the public lacks moral discrimination, the pulpit is responsible for it. If the church is degenerate and worldly, the pulpit is responsible for it. If Satan rules in the halls of our legislation, the pulpit is responsible for it. If the world loses interest in the religion, the pulpit is responsible for it." I read that letter and I was appalled, absolutely appalled, that those who signed that letter claimed to be ministers of the gospel. It was despicable. None of those things will affect what's going on in our world, for out of the heart flows murders and things of that nature, and they will not be stopped by having a resolution or a not resolution. But I believe that this resolution is absolutely important for us to maintain and pass, because we need to protect ourselves from the growing apostasy that is not only in our churches but in our world. Thank you.
Paul Petit?
Peterson.
Whoops. Okay, I got.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't come here today to speak, but I just feel moved to do so. Thank you, county board members, for even putting this resolution forward. I think that if the federal government should try to remove our rights as citizens, as enumerated in the Constitution, they're going to take little bit by little bit by little bit. If they want to try to start with our weapons, where do they stop? I served this country in the Army. and was trained in many, many forms of combat. It's not guns that kill people, it's people that kill people. And with this resolution, it's just a little bit of a start. I understand that it would end up being mostly symbolic, but if we don't stand up for the little things, we're going to end up losing the big things. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Steve Pattee, Pattee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of comments to make. I'm always intrigued by first of all, I'm a retired professor of interdisciplinary studies from St. Mary's University. I'm always intrigued by the argument about our God-given rights. I wonder exactly what those rights are. It's hard to imagine. It is the right to bear arms, and where in the Bible such rights are enumerated, although it is possible that those rights are found in a religious tradition other than the Judeo-Christian one. As far as I know, nowhere in the Bible does such a right find expression. In fact, and this speaks directly to the primary argument of the Second Amendment sanctuary movement, that we are free to, the movement suggesting that we are free to reject governmental policy when that policy is deemed unconstitutional. The New Testament states explicitly that we are to be, quote, subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. So whatever we think our God-given rights are, God's expectation is that we obey the government, even when we don't like what the government says. Nobody likes paying taxes. Nobody likes obeying traffic laws, but they are there for us to follow as far as the Bible is concerned. One other thing, and this leads to my next point, that I'd like to suggest that picking and choosing which aspects of the law we decide are constitutional and which aspects are not creates an extremely dangerous situation with the potential for unforeseen and very problematic consequences. In the 1830s and 1840s, a movement called nullification was advocated by certain southern states and their officials, most notably John C. Calhoun, who supported South Carolina's and by implication any other southern state, their right to nullify any federal law that they viewed as unconstitutional. The parallel to today's Second Amendment sanctuary movement is readily apparent. For Calhoun, nullification was an especially important principle that allowed southern states in particular to reject any attempt to curtail or limit slavery. A direct line can be drawn, therefore, between the policy of nullification and the establishment of what came to be known as states' rights and the secession of the South and the beginning of the Civil War. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that creating a Second Amendment sanctuary in Trempealeau County will lead to another civil war. But I am suggesting that if implemented, we can expect there to be unforeseen and inevitable consequences to a policy that allows a small minority to determine what can and what is not to be followed. Why, in other words, should we not expect that the nullification of other laws will occur? Who is the ultimate arbiter of what is right and isn't constitutional? The fact is that we are not just individuals who think they have the right to do whatever they like, nor is the Trempealeau County Board, with all due respect to this body, the body that determines what is and isn't constitutional. Whether we like it or not, it is ultimately the federal government and the United States Supreme Court that makes that determination. We are more than just citizens of Trempealeau County. We are citizens of the state of Wisconsin, and even bigger than that, the United States of America. As such, we are inexorably linked to one another and woven together into a community in which we are dependent on each other as part of what Thomas Jefferson called our inalienable right to the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
Valerian Ailes. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to sing again. Yeah, I'd like to sing. But I will not repeat what I said last time, hopefully. But I have a couple of other issues as to why I oppose this sanctuary amendment, or the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution. I think this resolution divides citizens of this county in an unbalanced way. Those who have guns and those who don't. Us versus them, me against you. And I get this fear that if I don't agree with those who have guns, they may threaten me and my family because gun owners have the power of gun for their use. I would much rather sit down face to face with those who disagree with me, listen to each other, remembering that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means we should listen twice as much as we speak and show respect for one another on all issues. Secondly, I support maintaining the Second Amendment for those who want to own and use guns for hunting, self-defense when threatened by physical harm from someone else, but not to threaten others just because they are afraid of people that are different from them, or don't act like them, have different opinions on issues affecting our county and society. I support having certain limitations put on the Second Amendment in our day. Like everyone who owns a gun should have a license to operate it, just like we license motor vehicle operators. Thirdly, this resolution does nothing to promote the work for better mental health care for all citizens without being ostracized for having mental problems. I agree that a gun doesn't shoot itself. Someone has to pull the trigger. But let's work to assure that mental health issues are identified and treated early without demeaning them for the way they behave. Mental health is critically important to maintaining public safety. So in conclusion, I want to say this. Let's use our imaginative abilities to envision a county, state, nation where citizens stand together to address the issues of our day. Let us discuss them face to face. Avoid the us versus them, me against you, we against they. Whether the Second Amendment resolution passes or fails by this committee, let us commit to talking and listening to each other to further understand and care for one another. Thank you for this time of listening to me. I will sit down now and be quiet as I listen to you.
Thank you. Terry Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing us to speak our minds and say what we believe. I want a gun because I know that in several states they're letting all kinds of criminals out of the prisons. And we need to be able to defend ourselves. We need to defend ourselves against the busloads of people that are coming and being taken and bussed from town to town from the border. Many of which are from Islamic countries. They hate us. They want to destroy us and our country. We need to be able to defend ourselves. And I think all we're asking is nothing different than what it is right now. All we want to do is be able to enforce and maintain the rights that the Constitution has given us to bear arms. We're also told, and this is repeating from the last time, that we need to bear arms not for hunting, but to protect ourselves from a runaway government. And I think we need to maintain that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ann Bowman, it says register in opposition to this item, but not comment.
I could make a comment.
Okay.
As one of the pastors in the area, one of the important jobs for all of the clergy is pastoral care. We love the people in our congregations, and we try to make a positive difference in the communities in which we live. Serve, based in what Jesus told us before he died, that the two greatest commandments are to love God and love your neighbor. The really tough part of job as a clergy is when we get called to address the dysfunction in your families. And when mental illness in your families takes a dark turn. And there are times that those are things that you hide from the rest of your family members and certainly hide from the community. But we know as confidential clergy what goes on. And we walk with you in this. I have been called too many times in my pastoral years of service to intervene in potentially dangerous family situations, which in some case includes meeting the police at any given location. And that includes removing guns from households in which abuse has been or is occurring, or suicide is being threatened. And regardless, family members are scared. I've had to call law enforcement to a graveside service because family members were fearful for their lives about a disgruntled relative who may show up with a gun. I spent the seemingly longest and tense moments of my pastoral career with a middle school youth who was concerned their friend was threatening suicide. Their friend was home alone and had access to guns. And as I called the police, I coached the youth on how to keep the suicidal youth engaged in text messaging until law enforcement arrived. And a life was saved that night. And last but not least, in a list of many things, I had to bury my sister, age 73, 2 years ago, when she took her life with a handgun. And we had no advance warning that anything was wrong in her life. And I think it's kind of symbolic to say that, or lift up that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And as pastors, we are very close to how mental health issues tear families apart and end lives suddenly. And some of the laws that we have that, and I too, I support the Second Amendment, absolutely. But there's some laws such as safe gun storage and extreme risk and extensive background checks that are in place for our protection as families and communities. And they are laws that actually help address the realities of potential mental health instability that can occur in any of our families without advance notice, because I know that from personal experience. And we all agree that our Second Amendment rights protect important freedoms that we have, but our Constitution was never meant to just be about your personal freedom. It's about everybody's freedoms. And we can't forget that all freedoms come with responsibilities and obligations that affect all people. Because we are all in this together to make our communities safe places to live, to learn, and to work with one another with compassion and kindness and understanding, and to provide opportunities to deeply listen to one another amidst our differences and move forward with hope rather than fear and even intimidation. And for those of you who are Christians in this room, your baptismal calling is to love God and love your neighbor as you work for justice and peace for all people in the communities in which you live. And that is never easy work. And so I want to give a shout out of thanks to all of you who desire to work for positive solutions in your advocacy for healthier families and communities, including Trempealeau County. Thank you.
Pam Nelson.
Can I yell from here? I don't think I could get up there.
Use the speaker, put a microphone back.
Get a remote. The left, the right side button.
Right side, right here?
Push the center one down so the light comes on.
Okay, all right, okay. My name is Pam Nelson. I've been a resident in Trempealeau County since 1971. After my husband and I got married, we have lived on his home farm. My husband's family are hunters. My family are hunters. We have guns. But my thought on this resolution is that I do not support it. I support having what I consider normal guns. None of us needs assault weapons. law enforcement, military can have assault weapons. None of us normal citizens need an assault weapon. And I strongly believe that people need background checks so that we do not have people with severe mental health issues that can buy guns. As an old granny, I don't think I should be able to go online or order assault weapons and 40 guns at a time from a catalog. I should have to be checked. The people that are selling me the guns should be licensed to sell those guns. Again, I'm not against guns. I'm against this resolution. I don't want assault weapons in the hands of everyone, and I want mental health checks. Thank you.
Michael Franks?
Thank you, Chairman. Committee members, this resolution does not make any law, nor does it cancel any existing law. Therefore, it has no impact on the safety of our citizens beyond those laws already in effect. We already have background checks. You cannot order guns from catalogs. The people who sell you the guns have to be licensed. There is a place where you, yeah, they do. Anyway, so a large number of other counties and states have already adopted the Second Amendment sanctuary status. Over 400 counties and 6 states in the United States have passed the Second Amendment sanctuary. As far as ignoring laws in place now, states are releasing felons. California released 18,000 felons last year by August, and now they won't tell you how many they're releasing. That's in violation of federal, most of those are in violation of federal minimum sentencing laws. Sanctuary cities exist in the United States. Anybody ever heard of them? That's violating federal laws on immigration. As far as rioting last year, I'm sure you all watched on the news the rioting and burning, looting that went on with the perpetrators not being arrested, the police being forced to stand back and let them have free reign, even to the point of taking over precinct buildings.
At the Capitol?
In Seattle. Remember, you're not supposed to talk while I'm talking, right? Control yourself. Okay, so I urge all those present to search online for the U.S. map showing the Second Amendment sanctuary counties and states. You'll see the U.S. has very predominantly adopted a Second Amendment sanctuary status, especially after the months of rioting, burning, and looting in every major city and several smaller towns. Even here in Wisconsin, you can visit Kenosha, you can visit the Madison State Street Business District. You probably won't have heard about Madison State Street Business District being burned because the media blocked it out and never told you about it. But you can still go down there and see the plywood over the glass. When businesses tried to replace the glass, the rioters smashed out the glass, told them to put their plywood back with their logos painted on it. So businesses have. Now, judging from the letter signed by several clergy and published in the La Crosse Tribune, when these clergymen who signed it look out across their congregations and our community, they see potential murderers, homicidal felons only restrained by dictatorial and powerful state and federal government bureaucrats and laws. The wording of their letter to the editor encourages citizens to fear and be suspicious of each other's motives. But I want to reassure Trempealeau County citizens that we don't need to fear each other. I went back as far as I could in online records, that's back to 2006, 15 years, and I cannot find a single murder in Trempealeau County. It's not there. So fear-mongering doesn't have to actually carry over to any kind of statistics. My personal experience over the last 20 years living in Independence after I retired from the Army, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel, lots of experience with weapons and bad guys who actually want to shoot you. And I do not feel a minute of threat in Trempealeau County. After 20 years of living in Independence, I can only attest to the goodwill of my fellow county citizens. When I look across a crowd at the fairs, stores, bars, and restaurants, I see farmers and merchants, workers and taxpayers, citizens of a peaceful Midwestern county living and working together and not committing a single firearm homicide in the last 15 years. And for the pastors here, you can check right after the Last Supper, Luke 22, 36, and 7, you may be familiar, where Christ tells his disciples, let him who has no sword sell his garment and buy one. The disciples answer and say they've got two, and he says that's okay, that's enough. At the time of the state signing the Constitution, Britain was very much a threat. The War of 1812, and that was in 1784, so in 1812 we have another another war with them, and our government, our federal government that time, and state governments really debated on how much power the federal government should have. The Bill of Rights was added in 1791, and its purpose, of course, if you read the papers, the letters that were written back and forth at that time, was to limit the power of the federal government, not the freedom of the citizens. And the citizens of the states looked at the federal government with a wary eye, knowing that it could get out of hand. Notably, at this time, President George Washington was not issuing executive orders. President Biden has issued 60 in his first 45 days, or Caesar's royal edicts, as I prefer to call them, directing government bureaucrats to identify as felons working, law-abiding, and tax-paying citizens because they own a certain color of a weapon, or we might not be able to afford the new tax that's planned for those firearms, and those will come down through the BATF in the form of regulations, not laws debated on a floor, but regulations. I stress again, they're not laws. The threats of an out-of-control federal dictator wielding executive orders or a state dictator issuing state-level orders are real. In Wisconsin, we saw this last year, twice since Governor Evers issued his mask order. Twice, the Wisconsin Supreme Court has come out and told them it's illegal. But still we have signs in Quick Trip and every other business that says you've got to wear a mask if you come in here. Even though any competent medical professional will tell you the paper mask is like trying to stop mosquitoes with a chain link fence. As far as the threat from President Biden, as of 15 April 2021, he had 46 days in, he'd issued 60 executive orders. President Biden, according to CNN's own Facts First site, Biden has said in the past that a Biden administration will come for people's assault weapons, and that's in quotes. And I've got the link if you'd like to go check it out and watch the video. CNN fact checkers also explain that Biden's gun control plan outlines a buyback program for assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Kind of a play on words there, considering the government cannot buy back anything they never owned. They can only confiscate it. According to Biden's website, the buyback will give individuals who now possess assault weapons, what he calls assault weapons, or high-capacity magazines, two options: sell the weapons to the government or register them under the National Firearms Act and pay a tax. And it's a graduating scale depending on how dangerous that weapon is perceived to be. During an August 2019 interview with CNN, Anderson Cooper asked Biden, there are people who think that a Biden administration means they're coming for my guns. Biden replied, in quotes, bingo, you're right. If you have an assault weapon, the fact of the matter is they should be illegal, period. President Biden has announced that he intends to use executive orders to accomplish his agenda, and he's already done it. 60 in the first 45 days. That brings us to Biden's choice for director of the BATF, Bureau of Alcohol,
It's long past
Tobacco
his 3
and
minutes.
Firearms.
Point of order.
I yield my time to Michael Franks.
Well, he's gone 7 minutes. Somebody else needs to yield.
You got it, Jim.
He's gone 7 minutes. Somebody
Wisconsin
else
has a
needs to
long
yield.
history of opposing unconstitutional federal law. Milwaukee County Sheriff released a man named Joshua Glover. Vermont and Pennsylvania released two men.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. What has this got to do with the resolution before this committee? He's talking about things that have nothing to do with this committee.
We could have made that comment
We
during the
mean
pastor's time.
nothing to do with this committee?
Carrie Jonas.
Thank you for giving me time. My name's Carrie Jonas. I'm a Lutheran pastor. I've served in Trempealeau County around 10 years, and I was trained as a Trempealeau County Sheriff's Chaplain, and I've done that for 10 years as well. As a chaplain, I get calls from dispatch, day or night, and I am sent to scenes of tragedy. Car, farm, industrial accidents. I go with officers to give death notices or to homes where tragic deaths have occurred. And my role is to provide spiritual care not just to the victims, but to the EMTs, the officers that are there on duty. These calls are never quick in and outs. One is there for a great deal of time. So I have seen up close and personal the work of the officers of our county. I hope that you have never been at one of these scenes. But what I have experienced from our officers in this county is professionalism, engagement. They know what they are doing. But because I have spent time with some of them, I know that in the last 2 years there has been a lot of added stress to their position. Not only, of course, is there a spotlight on law enforcement in our country, locally there is division. I mean, who would think a local school board would need to call 911 because they were afraid of the agitation occurring at a school board meeting? But that happened last night. Officers will tell you, in the last few years, there has just been more agitation and just more crazy out there. I ask this committee to oppose this resolution because it will heap additional stress on our county's sheriff's department. First, it's asking the sheriff's department to figure out what firearm laws to enforce and what laws are supposedly unconstitutional. And I ask, based on what? The whims and opinions of the writers of this resolution based on their fear that their firearms will be taken away by the dictators of this government. This is not the job of these officers, certainly not the job they've signed up for. They have sworn to uphold the law, not determine the law. In addition, I don't need to tell you that our nation is facing an abundance of tragedies from gun violence daily. Why should we think Trempealeau County will remain immune from these horrific tragedies? They are happening everywhere. God forbid this happens here. But if we are a 2A sanctuary where gun laws appear flexible, what would stop victims of these crimes from taking our county officers to court? And not only our officers, our county. I cannot imagine the additional stress this would add to the personal life of a county law enforcement officer who is simply trying to do his or her best work. But because of the haze and ambiguity of serving in a Second Amendment sanctuary county, they're now at risk of being taken to court. So, as a county sheriff's chaplain, I ask this committee to please consider our hardworking county law enforcement officers and stop this resolution in this committee. Thank you.
Reverend Karen Russell. It's okay.
Thank you for the time to share this letter today. I'm one of the clergy that signed this letter that has been spoken about earlier, and this is anything but fear-mongering. We urge the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors to stand against gun violence and reject the resolution to declare our county a Second Amendment sanctuary. We support the Second Amendment. In fact, many of us, including myself, are gun owners who enjoy hunting and recreational shooting. But declaring our county a Second Amendment sanctuary will not improve the common good nor enhance public safety. Mass shootings command public attention, but every day 109 people die in the United States by firearms. While our neighbors die by suicide, homicide, and accident, our nation once again engaged in an arms race. Americans purchased 21 million guns in 2020, an all-time high, and we will probably buy more in 2021. We are engaged in an armed race today that's not against the Soviet Union or the Taliban. We're arming ourselves against each other. We do not think the answer to an epidemic of gun violence, a domestic arms race, and other pressing social problems is more guns. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus commands his followers not to retaliate against evildoers and to turn the other cheek when struck. Believers today struggle to discern how we are called to obey this difficult word in relation to the powerful human urge to protect and defend what is dear to us. But at the bare minimum, Jesus' command convicts and convinces us that the answer to our nation and our humanity's most pressing problems is not violence. One of our most serious reservations about declaring Trempealeau County a Second Amendment sanctuary is that if the resolution is passed, it will undermine the rule of law and respect for representative government. The sanctuary resolution states the county will not enforce or fund unconstitutional laws. If all 72 counties in Wisconsin enforced only laws which the county determined were constitutional, chaos would ensue and law itself would become meaningless. This is why our courts and not our county government must ultimately decide the constitutionality of laws, including firearm laws. Above all else, we call upon our county government not to become captive to the dangerous assumptions which animate the sanctuary resolution, which is that the United States of America and even the state of Wisconsin are somehow grave threats to our way of life, and that Trempealeau County is trying to defend itself against this federal and state government. Our nation faces critical social problems, including creating economic opportunities for the next generation, ensuring that all citizens have access to affordable health care, seeking racial justice, and slowing the warming of the planet. Trempealeau County's government and programs are vitally necessary to address America's urgent problems at the local level. The sanctuary resolution is not only a distraction, it undermines the national unity of purpose we need to secure a more hopeful future for all people. We cannot tackle the important problems of our county and face our nation if we distrust other Americans so completely that we are convinced our rights and liberties can only be defended at gunpoint. The Second Amendment sanctuary movement reflects a lack of faith in all three branches of the American government. Our Constitution was written to form a more perfect union, and we need a higher sense of national unity and purpose now more than ever. Lincoln memorably quoted the Bible when he said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand. It stands to reason that a nation, a state, or a county where people are convinced that they have to arm themselves against their neighbors and their fellow citizens cannot thrive." This letter is signed, and in the interest of time, by 23 clergy members that include the Bishop Lori Anderson Scow from the Northwest Synod of Wisconsin, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, Bishop of the La Crosse Area Synod, Chris Marger, and the Assistant to the Bishop of the La Crosse Area Synod of the ELCA, Elizabeth Howe, members, Bishop of the United Methodist Church, and the Northwest Wisconsin Association, Reverend Robert McDougall from the United Church of Christ, along with many other parish pastors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. William Niemer.
Okay, I got it back.
When I started using guns, being a firearm owner, it was impressed upon me, as it should be, that it is a great moral responsibility. My years as an attorney have taught me that legislation in that area is also a great moral responsibility. And it requires the understanding that the Second Amendment is not absolute. It does not permit any type of use or possession of firearms. They are subject to reasonable restrictions. Also, it is not the role of a county board to determine what is constitutional. I would not want to take on the job of trying to figure out what's constitutional, and I've been a lawyer since 1978. I think this proposal may be in some ways well-intentioned, but I think it's overbroad. I think it's a solution in search of a problem, and at worst, it becomes a political prop. It's not necessary. And I join with the other people who have said that we would do better to try to address the great problems of this nation and make it the great democratic republic, small d, that it has always aspired to be, and have less division and more focusing on solving problems.
Thank you. Daniel Fremsted?
Thank you very much. Everybody's pretty much covered, a lot of this. I guess my point is we've seen how popular this is, both sides. I really feel this needs to go in front of the entire county board. There's no reason to stop it here. I would think either side would want to see how their board feels about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Last name is T. Baker? Tesla? Okay.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Tekla Bacon. I'm a retired social worker with the Western Dairyland and Head Start program. And I'm here to speak against the Sanctuary County issue that's up. I married a gun owner and a hunter, so I'm not against guns. But I also believe there have to be some rules. 2 police officers in this area married into our family. And I love them very much, and I worry about them a lot. They may be called to a domestic disturbance where there has been a shooting, a suicide by gun, or a mass shooting, hopefully not in this area, in any place. In any of those cases, they could be killed. But mostly they have to deal with the blood and the gore and the grieving of the families and the people around them. That has to be terrible for them. Had there been a 4-day cooling off period, possibly the suicide victim would have sought help, calmed down, or a family member or someone come to help him deal, or her, with their issues. In the instance of a person grabbing a gun for a domestic partner, maybe they would have cooled down. or someone who runs off to their workplace and shoots the people who they feel were against them. Some of the things I believe are that the loopholes in purchasing guns at a gun show should be changed, and the ability to purchase a gun kit online, which I believe still is available, should be made illegal. Apparently, you can buy the pieces and you can put that gun together with no serial number. This might be not well received here, but I do not believe that President Biden is out to take your guns away or to defend the police. If we are going to stop mass shootings and killings and deaths by passion, there need to be national gun laws to protect us. Otherwise, people are coming across our border into Wisconsin, and how do we work with that, just like what happened in Kenosha? And you say it is your Second Amendment's rights. Yes, it is. But it also carries responsibility. And I guess recently, thinking about gun rights, I've had a lot of thoughts about the NRA. And Wayne LaPierre with his being investigated with the NRA in New York State.
Point of order, yeah, stay on topic.
Okay,
before
okay.
this board.
I just think there are certain...
Excuse me, I just did.
I did, she did, and I will abide by that. But I think what I was getting at is we all have agitators, people who agitate us, who agitates you, who agitates me. And I think in this world, we start left looking at facts. We're being bombarded with lies and conspiracy theories, and it's hard to get the facts figured out. And I just think we need to stop the hate and start talking to each other in a respectful way without being agitated. And I have friends in this room today who disagree with me, but hopefully we still remain friends, and that's to be able to talk about this in an open manner. Thank you.
Thank you. David Fram?
Like many of you here today, I didn't come here planning to talk, but those that forget are destined to relive. I'm not going to go down the religion aisle. Quite frankly, I'm going to abide by our country's separation of church and state. Get that? The one thing I have for you is the biggest objection to owning guns, especially as I heard previous, large amount are assault weapons, is that our framers could not have known that such a weapon would become available. Wrong. Bill of Rights was ratified December 15th of 1792. In the United States of America, we received guns that were manifested as machine guns. Check it out, people. It's the puckle. Yes, our framers knew this was a possibility. Could they have imagined where we are today? Absolutely not. No more than we can predict what's going to be 200 years from us. Stop falling on that sword. It's time to end it. And again, church and state should not be here. If you really believe in what I heard one of you say, cut this church and state out. That's all I got.
Deb Petit?
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Deb Patty, a retired professor of education at UW-Eau Claire. And I am happy to be here today, though I have to say that it does make me a little sad that we're having this conversation. I am against the idea of Trempealeau County being a sanctuary county. First of all, as a person of faith, and my faith enters into my life wherever I am, I truly believe that the Jesus that I love, I worship, right across the street actually, did not support violence. I'll just say it one more time, that the Jesus that I love did not support violence at all, nor, I would like to say, racism. And I actually heard some of that here today in this meeting. Well-intentioned people, but I heard it, and I think, man, you put racism together with guns, and that's just scary. Secondly, I do believe we need national unity, I really do, to deal with our genuine societal problems, and we have them. Almost every day we hear about people being murdered with guns, almost every day. And thirdly, I do want to say that this summer I have the opportunity to teach Wisconsin youth all over the state, middle school students, high school students, over Zoom, not always my favorite, but will come from every part of the state. And you know what my topic is? Decided a long time ago, becoming peacemakers in a culture of violence. That is the topic. And I'm a little embarrassed that I'm going to tell them that we had this meeting here, that Trempealeau County, my county that I love, I just live 2 miles away, I love this county, that was our topic today. The idea of a sanctuary county is not my idea of being a peacemaker. Thanks.
Reverend David Christensen.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having us here today. I'd like to just note that the concept of sanctuary is a 3,000-year-old legal concept. It was handed down by God to Moses at the Exodus. It named 6 cities in Israel where a person who was unjustly accused of murder could find refuge while they straightened out their problems or finally had to give up. Now, sanctuary laws still exist in all modern legal systems. It's most visible here in the United States for foreigners who are escaping from life-threatening situations. And it requires serious proof and testimony of that situation before people are allowed asylum in this country. Now, the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Remember that the individual right under the Constitution to keep and bear arms was only established in 2008 by the Supreme Court. Since then, the courts and Congress and the states have consistently expanded and liberalized the laws in every aspect. Now, Justice Antonin Scalia, who wrote the majority opinion in Heller versus District of Columbia, he affirmed this individual right for the first time in the history of the country. But in the same opinion, he also affirmed the government's ability and obligation to regulate arms for the public good, to provide for well-regulated militias, and to ensure the security of our democracy. The resolution as offered here today does not seem to justify a need for sanctuary under these concepts. It reminds me of 1962 when all of our country's schools were consolidated into larger school districts, and for the first time I had to go to the city school on the school bus. The first day I got off, I ran across the street and instantly got pushed back by a high schooler in his crossing guard uniform and his flag with some harsh words. And because everything on our TV and our newsreels at the time was pictures of civil rights activists in the South being beaten by police and jailed, I yelled out at the top of my voice, "Police brutality!" I thought it was important, but I was considered crazy from that moment on. As a Christian pastor, I have to regularly preach and teach love and forgiveness for our enemies and our friends. Especially, I remember the words repeated through the gospel by God himself, by the prophets, the angels, and our Lord Jesus Christ. It is, "Do not be afraid. Peace be with you." Now, I was raised with the FRA, with marksmanship, responsible gun ownership, and good citizenship as the foundations of that training. It seems now that that resolution and the direction of our advocates in just the last few years has traveled far away from that. When I was raised, we didn't lock our doors and latch anything except to keep the dogs in and the flies out. We never turned a stranger away. We had peace in the countryside. Now we're being asked to distrust our neighbors and our government and plan on using deadly force to protect ourselves. And I have to share with you, this just doesn't preach from the pulpit anymore. Thank you.
Alyssa? Eric? Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm not sure if you got to see outside before this meeting. We had a rally of support from the community. There were about 40 people there to show their support for this resolution. And a lot more people told me themselves they would have come, they wanted to come, but they could not get off work in the middle of the day. The ones that were there left their tractors in the fields, brought their kids along. I got a babysitter. Some of them took off of work. This was important to make their voices heard. And as was presented at the last meeting, at the time, and even now we've gained more, we have signatures on petitions from over 1,600 people in this county. Those petitions went around by word of mouth, and people were showing up at small businesses, coming to people's houses to make their voice heard on these petitions. And many people I talked to, myself, have never gotten involved in politics before. They signed that petition because this was important enough to them to take a stand. Now, we are not looking for changes. We are purely trying to preserve what's already ours in the Constitution. And one of the letters I received from somebody that could not come but wanted to be here, his letter said, "We are not the ones causing division. The ones causing division are the ones trying to take the rights away from us. Division is not caused by asserting one's rights. It is shown by those who wish to take those rights away." And right now, all we're asking is for the county to present this to the board, to preserve what we already have, and protect us from an overreaching federal government that's actively working on laws and executive orders that would infringe on our Second Amendment rights. The Second Amendment does not grant us the rights to keep and bear arms. It is stating a right that we have naturally. The Second Amendment is denying the authority to the government to infringe on our rights to keep and bear arms. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We don't need a permit to own and operate a firearm. That's our permit, is the Second Amendment. Now, it was mentioned that you can buy guns online and not have a background check. I bought a hunting rifle online. It went to Holton's. They ran a background check. I could not leave the store until it cleared. And it cleared. No problem. Nothing illegal. I can't buy firearms online without sending it to a licensed seller. And I wasn't planning to talk about this, but because it's been mentioned, this came up in the meeting. As a Christian and as other Christians, the Bible calls us to obey the government. That's what people here are saying. It does. It calls us to obey the government. It says the government was established by God. But what they're failing to tell you, what about Romans 1? It says that God gives us over to our wicked and depraved minds. We're choosing a government. He's giving us this choice of who we elect. And Romans 13:3 was the first thing that came to my mind. Rulers hold no terror for those who do what's right, but for those who do what's wrong. What about when your rulers are making the people who aren't doing anything wrong afraid? And that's what's happening now. I'm afraid for my children growing up in a country where our constitutional rights can be just stripped away from them at any whim of any president or who's ever on the Congress at the time. I'm afraid for my abilities to effectively defend them from criminals if my rights are getting slowly taken away. Criminals already don't follow the laws. They're not going to follow any more gun control laws. That's only going to affect me and my kids. Rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. What about the hundreds of thousands of people that were killed by their own governments when they weren't doing anything wrong, but they were stripped of their rights to protect themselves? That is why it's so important for this resolution to go to the county board. They need to view this, they need to represent the people, and it is their job to be the check and balance when the higher governments are not following the highest law of the land, which is the Constitution. They're trying to override the law. They're not acting according to the law. So it's the job of the board to protect us and to stand for the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Luthi, it says register in favor of this item but not comment? Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Good people. Thank you for giving me the time. A lot of good speeches today and a lot of opposition, which is a good thing. Opposition is how we find truth. It's how we weigh and balance and measure things. Without it, one side would just run wild, right? However, I've heard a lot of talks, and I haven't heard a lot of facts one way or the other about guns and what they cause or don't cause. We talk about these horrendous crimes, which is true. They're very horrendous. But over 85% of them take place in gun-free zones. They do not happen in places that operate guns, which is why Trempealeau County is such a safe place already. Most all the people here do own guns. They've been hunting their whole lives. I was born and raised here. Because of my upbringing here, I decided to join the Marine Corps and help defend my country and others more because of the way we grew up here. The stuff I was taught here by my teachers, my family, my religious people, those are the things that I grew up believing. I don't want to add or take away anything either. I just want it to stay the way it is. Liberty. The only word anyone in here should ever care about is that word right there. The only word, really, that can be enforced by anyone, including God. People's right to choose. Liberty. You have a right to choose. You have a right to choose to walk into this place or not. You have a right to choose to get a vaccination or not. You have the right to choose a gun to own or not. But you have that right to choose. And in the places where people are given the right to choose, they happen to be the safest places in the United States of America by far. If I were to name the 3 most dangerous places, they are the most strictest gun law places in the country. I'm certified post, 10 years in the Marine Corps. I'm also a certified instructor in non-docs and BCI by the Criminal Division of Identification. I know the CDC statistics by the back of my hand. More people die by hammers, knives, and vehicles, murder, not just death, murdered, than any gun out there. You're not asking me to take away your vehicle. You're not asking me to take away your framer's hammer because you still want him to build your house. But you're asking to take away a gun, which is simply a tool. I agree with many of you that the thing we should be doing is focusing on mental health. We should be giving money and taxing to take care of way more people with mental illness or disease. When somebody is sick enough and hurting bad enough to want to take their own life, it's not a gun that's going to stop or give it to them. Okay? They will make that choice by several other means. Narcotics kill more people than guns by far, including suicide and murder. It's just a tool. We need to focus on the people. And we, the people, have the right, I believe, to choose liberty. I'm, again, not asking to add or take away anything. I'm simply asking that if our federal government wanted to come down with a law that would restrict that liberty, then the good people of our county would back us up and stop that. In Trempealeau County, we don't have to worry about the police violence and the riot and looting because we are good people and we love each other. With opposition or not, I believe opposition is one of the best things we have in this country. Again, it's the way we find the truth. It's the balancing scale which we started with our forefathers in the first place. But to take any of that away, we'll never get it back. We're going to keep chipping away at that foundation until it falls down on us. And any great society that fell did this exact same thing. They slowly chipped away. I ask that we don't do that, and I ask that the board will support this. Simply for the right of liberty and freedom for all of us. The safest places in the country have the most open gun laws because the criminals know that if they go there, they'll face opposition. That's why opposition is also so good. The most dangerous, you don't have that liberty or choice. Please think about that. I love you guys. Thank you.
Jeff Peterson said in favor but did not want to comment? Okay. Paul, I can't exactly read the last name.
Paul Center needed to leave, so he's not here.
He's not here, okay. Peter Jonas?
My office is right across the street from the courthouse here, so I walk by the courthouse most mornings. And more often than not, the flag is at half-staff. And the flag is at half-staff so often that one mass shooting kind of blurs into another in my mind. Is it Colorado or California or Pennsylvania? Racine, Ashwaubenon. And the gun lobby would have us believe there's nothing we can do about it. Well, Second Amendment. You know, nothing we can do about it. I choose to believe that Americans aren't inherently more violent than people in other countries. It's just that we have chosen to be in bondage to the gun industry and to those who are carrying water for them, to a system where it is just very easy to kill another person or kill yourself in this country. Too easy. The common sense of American people is right now under a huge boulder, and that boulder is the gun lobby. And so I'm asking you as this committee to do something that is hard. I'm asking you today to put your shoulder on that boulder and start pushing. You say, oh, we're just a little county. You know, what can we possibly do? It is only going to get better if people in little counties, rural counties, follow their gut, follow the good common sense that God and their mother gave them, and say no. Say no to this debilitating belief that there is absolutely nothing that we can do about gun violence. You know, the gun lobby would really have us convinced that any and every law that attempts to regulate firearms.
There is no gun lobby here.
You're the gun lobby. You're carrying water for them.
Stay on the sanctuary part of it, because we haven't got a lot of time left before we have to be out of this room.
There is, I'm asking you to do the right thing, to be the adults in the room, to say no to this. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could you instruct the gallery to please keep their comments and their opinions to themselves? At
Yes,
this point,
well-
I'm about to ask law enforcement to remove those that continue to
Yeah,
do
if
it.
anybody's speaking, please do not comment from the floor. James Frank, did you give your time up, or are you going to?
Give it up.
Okay.
I'm James Franks, Osseo, Wisconsin. I'll try to keep it short.
Thank you.
I urge this body to move forward with this resolution to the full county board and debate its consideration and support the declaration of Trempealeau County as a Second Amendment sanctuary county, as 17 other counties in Wisconsin, 70 counties in Illinois, 114 counties in Kentucky, 49 of 83 counties in Michigan, 91 or 95 counties in the state of Virginia, and about 400. And this was a month as of a month ago, so we're probably way up above that. Other county governments in the other 40 states, as well as the entire states of Alaska, Arizona, Idaho, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Arkansas, Montana, North Dakota, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Nevada, Washington, and Oregon. So anyway, I just, if you would please vote to move this forward to the full county board, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Last speaker, Junior Prudlick. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a sheet up here?
Yep.
Go ahead, Junior.
My name's Junior Prudlick. Oh. And I'm the one that brought this resolution forward. Wow, it looks to me if it goes to county board, you better set a month aside for comments. Comments for both sides have been good. Not always factual, but good comments. There's no place in this resolution that says anything about God. It doesn't say anything about us versus them. It's simple, and it verifies a commitment to a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are for every person in the U.S. And that's what we're trying to enhance. Not change. We're not changing any laws. We're not asking for any radical steps. Now, somebody brought up the point of we're going to be so hard on our local law enforcement. I want to make you understand that every law enforcement officer I talked to supported this, whether it was local, county, or state trooper. Everybody that we talked to supported this. There's a reason for that. They understand the laws better than us average people. They understand what you can lose when you lose due process. We also heard about do the right thing in our government because of the gun lobby. I want to make a point. Do you know the safest country in the world, the one that has the lowest crime rate with firearms? It's Switzerland. Do you know why? It's because their government trains every person on the safe and the safe and the right, correct way to handle a firearm. And they issue every adult a firearm. Every household has firearms in Switzerland. And they have the lowest crime rate in the country, in the world. Think about that. There's your reason. I'm hoping this goes forward to the county board. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and I'm out of here. And I thank you for your time.
Oh, no, okay, no comments somewhere. You have so many, you probably stuck it in your papers.
Carol's like, I'm not taking one.
See, I knew. You've stolen my papers before. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Jeannie Nutter. I'm a citizen of Trempealeau County. I'm also a county board supervisor. I'm a gun owner. My husband's a gun owner. My husband was in law enforcement his entire life. He started in Dane County. He worked in Eau Claire County. He worked for the department. His final job was with the Department of Justice. He was a special agent. And I thank God the day he was stabbed 13 times and left to bleed to death in a restaurant in Wausau that the perpetrator didn't have a gun, or I would not have a husband today. There's been a lot of talk about the Second Amendment. Could it be repealed? In my lifetime, in your lifetime, in my new baby grandson's lifetime, it'll never happen. To repeal or change an amendment, you need a supermajority in Congress. Both the House and the Senate, which means 2/3 in both have to support it. Then it has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states. 38 states have to say, Second Amendment is gone. Anybody here think that's going to happen? No. So I just wanted to put that out there because there's a lot of people who think the government, Joe Biden, somebody can come. I've been waiting for 65 years for somebody to come and take our guns. They're not coming. And just another tidbit, 75% of Americans want more gun safety rules, and 85% of Americans support total enhanced background checks. Also, when it comes to sanctuary counties, a number of states' attorney generals say, and legal experts argue, there could be court challenges and lawsuits for localities that stop enforcing gun and federal laws. The Virginia Attorney General, the Washington Attorney General, Colorado Attorney General went even so far as to say any sheriff who supports a sanctuary should resign. Mary McCord, a former Assistant General for National Security, states that sanctuary amendments have no legal basis and only a court can overturn. Now, I have to say I don't stay up late worrying about my gun being taken away, but what I do worry about in this county is these things. Will we have enough money next year in our budget for our nutrition program for elderly? We have a waiting list, although I refuse to use that waiting list because I can't see anybody who can't afford a meal being put on a waiting list. Monday, this happened in our Human Services Committee. We have now a waiting list for kids who need to be in kinship care. So, say Sally needs to put her child in with her aunt and uncle while she goes to treatment. She can't do it voluntarily anymore because we don't have the money for it. So we'd have to go to court. I'm telling you what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the Second Amendment being ripped from my hands. These are real issues happening in our county where we now don't have money to put kids in voluntary kinship care anymore. We have a Department of Land Management that's in shambles. We have a county park that is trashed every weekend. So if some of you want to go out there and patrol on your own time to take care of your precious county park, our sparkling jewel in this county, I invite you to do so. Our roads are falling apart. We have a mental health crisis. We don't have any beds for mental health. People have said mental health here, but I bet you all are against red flag amendments.
Mr. Chair, only a member of the committee can call point of order. It's a thing.
We have a housing problem in this county, and we have to work really hard to build back our economy and our tourism. So I think us worrying about our Second Amendment rights being taken away is irresponsible. And it would be irresponsible for me as a public servant to support it, because what you're asking me to do as a public servant is to refuse to support our law enforcement should any kind of law come from the feds or the state. And if Sandy Hook, where 26 little children were murdered, I doubt that anything is going to happen in the near future. So I cannot support this because I cannot be asked to not follow the laws. What would I say to my grandson someday? Oh, sorry, I don't want to pay taxes anymore. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. We have to be role models for our kids.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, could we have Sheriff Semmingson weigh in on this, as far as just moving it forward or not?
No.
We can't?
Okay.
No, he's not. He's not a voting member of the committee.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Resolution by PC Associated Rod and Gun Clubs, Trempealeau County, Second Amendment Sanctuary County.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
As a concealed carry weapon owner, I make a motion to advance this to the full county board for consideration. Ask the county board chair to designate a special meeting dedicated just to this topic and allow for at least 2 hours of public comment, and longer if needed, and hold it in a bigger venue where people can comfortably participate.
Okay.
And have that meeting in June.
Okay, is there a second to that?
This is the committee.
Yeah, if it were a full county board, we will always meet in the evening.
I will second that.
Okay, so here's my logic on this one. Yes, I have a gun. Yes, a concealed carry. There's the purse. I am not anti-gun. I'm very Second Amendment. My whole family owns guns. This is not an issue about guns or fear of gun. I'm not having a fear-based reaction. What I feel right now is this. With something as significant and emotional and controversial but important to so many citizens of our county, what I have heard is, my elected representative on the board is not on your committee.
Right.
I have heard, I can't come to your meeting during the day. I have to take off work without pay. I can't get a babysitter. I've heard all of these things. The most recent one came at 6:30 this morning. And I answered that call because I know how important this issue is. I was born into a family of gun owners and gun lovers. I was raised at the feet of John Birch Society loyalists. If you don't know who they are, then you're not conservative enough. And so where I come from is a place that I certainly understand the fears and the concerns. I've heard everything. Family reunions are something to behold. I know that this is an issue that people want to be heard on, but I also believe that every member of the county board should weigh in on this. I don't think that something like this should rest on the shoulders of 5 members of the board. I think that this should go to every member of the board, and that every citizen of this county should be able to contact their elected official and tell them they want to vote for them. And I think that the only way that can happen is if we have a special county board meeting where all the county board supervisors are present and can weigh in on this topic. I don't think it's fair to the citizens, to the people who have come in here and asked us to listen to them, and to us. What if this is a tie and one swing vote gets it one way or the other? That's just BS. So I think that we take it to the full board. We answer this. We beat the crap out of it. We do whatever we're going to do with it. I've already talked to Chair Austin about it. He believes that this is probably where it needs to go as well. And so that is the reasoning behind my making this motion.
I agree. I said the same thing. I don't feel 5 people out of the 17 should be the deciding factor on this. I think it should go to the whole board. I think there's too many representatives that are not being able to be heard by the people in their district. And at this meeting, whether you agree with it or not, I still think that the county board is the place where it should be.
And this is not voting to approve or not approve. This is simply voting
Correct.
to advance it to the full board.
So
Let the
that
vote take
everybody
place
has a
there.
say.
Let everybody stand and be counted.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I disagree. And I've listened to Supervisor Miller's arguments. I just want to point out that by moving this immediately to the full board, you deprive this committee of the opportunity to do anything, to weigh in on this. The way the system works in this county is any new resolution goes through a committee first. The committee, in a sense, vets that idea and moves it on to the county board. And I don't see any reason to circumvent the process. Even if the motion, or even if the resolution, if there were a motion to approve, and if that motion were voted down, the board chairman could still put this on the agenda, could still do everything that Supervisor Miller has described. But by leaping over, by avoiding this committee, we're circumventing the process. So if that's going to be the motion, I'll be voting no.
If this committee were to vote no on it, can it advance to the full board? Can the chair put it on the agenda?
The chair could put anything on the agenda.
He is the gatekeeper of the agenda, so it could, in theory, go onto the agenda.
Well,
He can do everything
Say that, John?
everything you just described, if he wants to do it.
This is just,
So you made a
I
motion?
made a motion, you seconded
I
it. So that
seconded
one's
it.
on the floor right now, so.
Okay.
um,
Voice vote or?
Roll call.
Roll call. Roll call. Dan Schreiner.
Aye.
Tim Ziegler.
No.
Randy Tellison.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Ron Johnson, yes. Motion carried 4-1. To move it to the full county board.
Thank you.
Okay. That's all on the resolution.
There's one piece of unfinished business here.
Yes.
When this was taped, the one thing that this deprives this committee of is hearing the opinion of corporate counsel on the resolution. This matter was tabled a month ago at the request of, at a motion made by Mr. Schreiner in order to hear corporate counsel weigh in on the potential legality. And by circumventing the process, we have not heard that. So I guess we can wait another month. But I just wanted to point out that we're going forward we are leapfrogging probably unnecessarily. We're not really hearing all the information we should.
And I do understand what you're saying, but I think the full board should probably hear from what Rick has to say as well. It's just opposed to just a handful. That's my opinion. I mean, I certainly.
Yeah, it's too late now. Right. Exactly.
That guy with the glasses, he's going to decide it. I'm sure he won't decide it today, but yes, somebody else send out a. Yeah. Hey, what's your name?
You requested it.
Pastor Stroke,
I'm working on a mental health.
Exactly. That's why I'm not speaking.
And the priority for that being working with the mental health issues in the county.
I think we've got
a lot of what you said. If I reach out to you, you can participate in that process.
Sure.
Okay.
A new justice center. We have, the theory or the possibility of child abduction or child sex slave going on in this county. Traffic enforcement. And I don't know nothing about any of that because of this stuff that keeps coming from the board. Mask orders, the
Coming in some guys like you
sanctuary
think
county,
We still got some stuff on the.
You bet, thanks. Thank you very much. And I've about had it. I really have. And you're right, I can't win in this situation. And I didn't ask for it.
Emergency Management Director position.
Yeah. Yep.
Emergency Management Director position. We still got some stuff on here.
So I'll try to make this quick. Can you guys just step out? We got to continue this. We're running out of time, so I don't mean to be disrespectful.
Take your
Huh?
fellowship outside.
In more ways.
So I can take my mask off.
So, back in December, I brought a resolution to this committee and then ultimately to the county board for extending our emergency government director's position to a full-time position through June 30th, primarily related to COVID and the possibility of COVID reimbursements to help offset some of those costs. June 30th is right around the corner, and at that meeting and prior meetings, I did mention that there will be coming a time when I make a proposal to make the full-time or the emergency government director position a full-time position in Trempealeau County. I've asked Mr. Schreiner over the years when he was in that position if we are missing out because we don't have a full-time emergency government director, and he assures we have. I've asked our regional director, Lisa McDonald. She says the same. And recent events with weather is a primarily job there. Recent events with the incidents we've had and possibly lack of mitigation and preparedness all boils down to the fact that we don't have a full-time emergency government director. So for the remainder of 2021, I'm proposing that we continue our current director, Dustin Stevens, in that position as a full-time director. The resolution for January through June 30th was an additional $10,000 to my budget, according to the resolution itself. I suspect that the remainder of the year is an additional $10,000. I did not put it in resolution form because the way the budget is structured this year and spending that will not happen possibly because of COVID, I will not be asking for any more money for this year. It will be a budget item for next year. So I guess if you tell me I still have to put it on resolution, I'm not against that, but I didn't do that for this meeting because I'm not asking for any more money. I'm simply asking for the additional hours for the remainder of 2021. And I did ask Dustin to do some research so that he can talk a little bit about why this should be a full-time position. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. I don't know if he's in a position to talk about that or not. So.
I mean, a lot of it comes down to, like the sheriff said, mitigation. There's a lot of other stuff we can be doing to, prevent future flooding disasters, or to the extent that we've been having them. Along with that, there's plans that we need to update annually, and those just keep getting more and more in depth. Between the actual emergency operation plan for the county, the hazmat plans for the facilities in the county, the chemicals they're keeping on site, it's increasing. So it's getting to be a workload that I think the position needs to be a full-time position. It's going to be hard to keep up otherwise.
I did ask him to reach out to Dan for Dan's experience as an emergency government director and the shortfalls because of the way we have it set up. Again, I don't know if he's prepared to say anything, but I just don't want to mention that I did reach out to him for that. So.
Oh, I'm prepared.
I'm going to take my mask off for this.
Less than 10 in here.
I had most of the time the pleasure of serving as Trempealeau County's Emergency Management Director from the middle of September 2007 until April 20th, 2021. 20, that's right. I
Right.
lost this last year.
Yeah, you left in the middle of everything blowing up.
And my duties as Emergency Management Director were entirely part-time through that, I guess, 12, 13 years, whatever it was. I will tell you that in those years, 2007, 2008, 2010, 2013, 2015, 17, 19, and then 2020 with COVID were years where events occurred that required in-depth municipal participation, along with the county in a response, and myself in a response method. At very little time during that period was I able to spend enough time on mitigation and or planning and being proactive, working with the municipalities, townships, villages, cities, and in some cases, individual citizens, to plan and prepare for eventualities, to go through the process of here's what you can do in advance to help reduce damage to your life and property in the event that some weather event, tornado, flood, or pandemic were to occur. Everybody here has experienced the last 13 months of COVID. We got caught with our feet flat on the ground, totally unprepared to respond to something like this. And if we don't plan and prepare for future events of a similar nature, we're going to get caught with our feet flat on the ground again. And I have the fear that the
price we'll have to pay if that were to occur will be much greater in economic and life lost. I'd have loved to have been able to clone myself a lot of the times in my career as emergency management director, but to date, I've been unable to figure out how to do that. I would wholeheartedly recommend that this committee recommend to the full board that the position of emergency management director be made a full-time position without an expiration date.
If that was a motion, I second it.
That was a motion?
Okay. It's a motion.
Seconded by Sally.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with him as the person who was the chair of the LAPC for years. I know how hard Dan worked, and then certainly working
Roll
with,
call.
you know.
No other?
I just want to clarify something. Is your motion is talking about for the rest of this year, correct? Because obviously with budget issues, each board can follow through.
It's for the rest of this year with a little caveat that we need to pay attention to the future and make it a non-expiring position at that point.
And the only reason I ask is without having to take additional money, does it need to go to the full board? And my thought is just to the personnel committee, and then it'd be, as long as they say it's okay, that would be sufficient, because it's not a new position, it's just as expanding the hours. We did it with the TV station because there was additional money that needed to come out of the general fund. That was just my thoughts when I was, as people were talking, that maybe doesn't even need to go to full board for the 2021.
Okay.
And I would just have a question with that. Would that be remedied just simply with my budget submission this fall then, or would I have to come forward with a resolution to make it a permanent full-time position at that time?
I think you could do with your budget. I don't know if you'd have to do a project initiation. I'm not sure on that part of it, but I think just with your budget, that would be fine.
Okay.
That's just my opinion on everything else.
So you're saying we probably don't have to take it to the full county board, just send it to personnel and bargaining?
That would be my thoughts and recommendations, because it's not a new position and it's already funded. I don't think it needs to go there.
We still need to vote on that?
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Send it to personnel and bargaining. Dan, Mr. Schreiner?
I'm voting yes.
Mr. Ziegler?
Yes.
Mr. Tellefson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson, yes. Motion carried, 5-0. Discussion and possible action on monthly department and jail activities, concerns, questions regarding monthly vouchers. Do I have any of them?
Nothing really sticks out in there to me that you may have questions on. However, one supervisor did question the $3,000 squad car expense for the Dodge Ram, and I'll just say that was just the outfitting of a brand-new vehicle,
Okay.
a typical expense, so.
Okay. General operations.
I'm going to let Tanya talk about things that are going on in the jail if she'd like. I will just give a brief rundown of the daily numbers. So in April, our average daily population has risen now to 42. We're up 2 from March. Out of county, average daily population in April is 18. In county was 18. Plus we have 5 on EM, and then 1 in another jail sitting a sentence concurrently with one of ours. Again, those are April numbers. We did notice that, just one thing to point out is that COVID medical observations in April is down almost half from what it has been, or what it was in March. We're down to 42 from 78, so hopefully that trend continues as well. The drug withdrawals, the physical assaults, the medical watches, suicide attempts, all those other caveats that I normally report on have remained fairly steady. Tanya, did you have anything you wanted to mention about the what's happening in the jail at all, or?
Actually, that is an error with 42. We actually had 64, so everybody that comes into the jail is on COVID medical observation. I don't know where that 42 came in, so sorry about that.
Well, felt optimistic for a minute anyway.
It is down a little bit from last month.
It is still down, so,
Yeah.
but,
So,
do you want to give a body scanner update, maybe?
we still continue to work on a process for that. We are waiting, the county is, the sheriff is going to contract with a different healthcare provider. We're waiting to kind of get their input on searches when we have to go for medical clearance. Once we get that process in place, we're hoping to move forward with the start of the process of body scanning individuals. So it's been a long haul, but we'll get there.
And she did touch on something that I had on my original agenda that I handed off to Ms. Nutter earlier. I have entered into a contract with Advanced Correctional Healthcare to replace the 4 contracts that we will be terminating with our previous vendor. Things went along, it took longer than I wanted to, but it went pretty smooth to get questions answered. It came down to one of 2 vendors. This vendor was not necessarily the cheapest, however, they do have by far the most experience in our area, and allows us to share staff with other close by jails in the event that the nurse is on vacation or holiday or something. So again, this is an increase to the budget. However, because of unspent monies that I feel we'll have at the end of the year, it will not be something that I come to the county board for. The way I'm anticipating it right now doesn't mean I won't in the fall if things start looking bad. But I've signed the contract. I feel I have the money in the budget right now, and it'll be a budget item this fall the way it stands. So. And that's been on the agenda a couple months now. I guess if anybody had any questions about that, I certainly will answer that.
I think too, also to note that we've started to vaccine inmates in our custody, using the public health department and our nurses.
So, kind of kept it short and sweet for you here. I did not have crash data. I didn't see the email, so I'll have that for you next month. Nothing significant. We had a pretty impressive, if you call it that, 3-vehicle crash down in Beach Corners here a couple weeks ago that that had the potential to be pretty bad, involving 2 heavy commercial trucks and a vehicle. But no fatalities there, just some injuries, and that's the most notable one I can think of for the month. So.
That was one guy that needs to put money in the collection plate on Sunday.
Well, my chief deputy was on scene for that one, and he reiterated that several times that that one was a close one. So.
Nothing else under general operations?
I have nothing else right now unless you have questions, probably because of ill preparedness, but I don't have anything else to mention right now.
Just one thing, Sheriff, I'm glad you brought up the contracts. I was going to ask about that. So I'm glad you found a vendor. Please keep us updated on how that goes, since this is entering into a new relationship here.
Absolutely. In our many contacts with both prospective vendors, we have established some good comfort levels that we really understand each other, and I think this is going to be a very smooth transition, but I certainly will keep you informed.
Thank you.
Meeting date for next month, and if the committee wants to, for June, July, and August, we can move back to the morning meetings if that is okay with everybody else, or if they'd rather stay where they're at.
I'm flexible, however, I will say that our recent change did cause some confusion because it didn't get updated on the website, so anything we set for the next 3 months, I would ask that to make sure that IT may be made aware so that the website gets updated.
Okay.
But I'm very flexible. The day of the week and the time is whatever you guys decide.
9 o'clock sound good for anybody
I,
else?
for one, would like to move it to 9 o'clock instead of interrupting the day.
Yeah.
I'm not the only person who has to clean up, change clothes.
What did you say, Dan?
Yeah.
9 o'clock's good for me, too.
And normally it's the third Wednesday.
Same here.
I could do it for June, July, and August. After that, there'll be some I wouldn't be able to make, but.
Third Wednesday or second? Today, this is the second.
The reason it was the second Wednesday this month is to get it ahead of the county board with anticipation that the resolution would have went to the next Monday's county board.
How come again did we switch from Tuesdays?
It was a hiccup in that one particular meeting that we switched to the Wednesday, and at that meeting, we decided just to keep it on the second Wednesdays. I think we were perhaps in conflict with another committee at that time, so,
Somebody's meeting.
yeah.
So Wednesday, and what's the date of that?
I don't have anything with me that would tell me that. Looks like June 16th? And that would be before the June county meeting? Is the June county meeting the 21st?
Yep.
June 16th at 9 o'clock.
And that is the third Wednesday.
Okay.
Rob, before we leave, I'd still like to clear up about that special meeting. So did this committee instruct the board chairman to hold a special meeting? Is that what happened?
Yep.
Okay.
Did you already talk to John?
I talked to him before I came in, out in the parking lot, and he was already of that mind, so, yeah.
Anything else?
No. Just wanted to know what's going on.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.